production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, we have two feature stories for you. You'll visit one of the largest cattle seed stock operations in the United States, and it's family owned.
In our Southern Gardening segment today, when you see these blooming, spring is on the way regardless of what the groundhog says.
In the food factor, green is the color of St. Patrick's Day, but it's also the color of some foods to keep you healthy.
Our first feature story today is about how to establish the habitat on your land that will help wild turkeys to thrive.
Turkeys are creatures of forest land habitat, and over half of the southeast is forested, much of that in private land, so producing turkeys on private forest land areas is critical.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
Today it's an all-feature story edition of our program.
Leighton, turkey hunting season will be getting underway this month in many parts of the United States. It will start in South Florida this weekend. Unfortunately, most of us only think about turkeys during hunting season. To be successful, turkeys need proper habitat year-round. There's no magic to growing wild turkeys. They will flourish if you provide the habitat and use common sense. It's an early March morning in southwest Mississippi. If anyone can lay claim to the thrill of the hunt, it's turkey hunters. They're eye to eye with an animal that has keen eyesight and clear hearing. They try to talk turkey by imitating its language while covered in camouflage clothing from boots to hat. When you're out in the woods hunting turkeys, it's easy to forget why the turkeys are there, or in some cases, not there. The reason is habitat. The better your land suits the needs of turkeys, the better your chances of having them.
Turkeys are creatures of forest land habitat, and over half of the southeast is forested, much of that in private land, so producing turkeys on private forest land areas is critical.
Like many animals, turkeys need a varied habitat to be successful. They can live in hardwood or pine forests. With the increase in the value of timber, many landowners are cutting trees and replanting them in pine plantations. In the future, turkeys will need help from man in order to maintain their present numbers in Mississippi.
The key to having a good wild turkey population is production. We've got to have successful nests, and we've got to have good survival of the poults. And so habitat, proper habitat for nesting areas, brood rearing areas, feeding, courtship, the whole thing has to be provided. And we achieve that habitat with a good mix of forest land habitat and openings.
Stewart says turkeys can do well on land that ranges from as little as 15% open space up to 65%. Logging roads such as this one with wide shoulders can become important areas for turkeys to raise their young.
Turkeys will normally nest within 10 to 20 yards of an opening, a roadside or an edge like this. And we've got pretty decent nesting habitat here in this pine forest, although it probably does need a burn, and that will help open it up some and produce more food. So the hen will bring them from the nest out into brood rearing habitat, and they can pick up grasses, and the hen and the poults later on will use these roadsides to pick up a lot of seed heads that are going to be produced here with some of these grasses and different weeds like that. Some of the more favored foods would include hard mass like acorns in the fall and winter, green stuff in the spring and summer, seed heads late in the summer that you might find out in a grassy field. These are important foods, and surprisingly to some people, pine seed is a very good turkey food. So in years when we lose our acorn crop or don't have an acorn crop, to speak of, then pine seed can be very important, along with nearly any year. Even when we do have an acorn crop, they'll use pine seed.
Stewart says it's important to put gates on logging roads to keep out traffic and thereby encourage turkeys to use the areas. In pines, turkeys prefer older, thin stands, which have been controlled burned on a 3 to 5 year basis. The open understory provides food and cover. In pine plantations, Stewart says research shows turkeys do the best in trees 2 to 4 years old. The main goal is to control burn and provide open space.
But if we can get into pine plantations fairly early with a burning and thinning program, provide some openings, some permanent openings in with that pine plantation, we can produce good numbers of turkeys and achieve our objectives there for the wild turkey as well as white-tailed deer and other species.
Providing openings for turkeys applies to hardwood forest settings as well as pine. This Claiborne County beef cattle operation is owned by the Covington family. It's 60% hardwood timberland and 40% pasture. Since turkeys nest on the ground, it's important to avoid mowing pastures or burning too early in the spring.
If we can avoid practices such as bush hogging and disking or burning during the nesting season, say from mid-March through June or July, ideally we would cover most of the nesting season then.
At the Covington farm, they wait until the latter part of June to mow, and even then they leave some pastures unclipped.
Well, about 5 years ago on the place, we went into we really want to make it look good, so we clipped down all our pastures, and which it looked pretty, but it was pretty detrimental to our turkey population. We noticed after the first couple of years that we were seeing fewer and fewer successful hatches, and we contributed to there just wasn't enough brood area. So that's what we did. We came back in and left some areas so that the hens would have places to raise their little ones.
If we do need to bush hog or clip a field during the nesting season, if we can leave a perimeter area around that field undisturbed, then that will also help us, because most of those nests will be around the edge.
Another way the Covingtons keep up turkey numbers is not to harvest every bird they see. No year-old males, known as jakes, are taken, and the killing of older gobblers is limited.
We don't kill any jakes at all, and on our big gobblers, even in those cases, even with 720 acres, what I try to do is limit it to 3 gobblers, and in special situations, if we see we've got plenty of birds, we will go ahead and kill 4 birds off here, but 4 is the maximum we'll kill off this place in any one year.
On this particular day, Covington called this jake in close before the turkey saw the Farmweek camera and decided he should go. Is the work to produce turkey habitat worth the trouble? For some, it is.
I get more pleasure out of just going out and listening to the birds gobbling and calling to them and watching how they respond, how they react.
From Southwest Mississippi, I'm Artis Ford reporting. Well, go to our Farm Week website if you'd like to see this story on turkey habitat again. The website address is farmweek.msucares.com. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube. We'll also have some links to help you get started in providing habitat for wild turkeys while you're growing your trees for timber. And Layton, that's an old story obviously, but it's a goodie. The information is still good, and I can still remember that like we shot it yesterday. I mean, that thrill of the hunt is there with turkeys, and when you're trying to cart around a camera while you're doing it, it's kind of interesting too.
That's right. That's what makes it memorable part of it.
But nothing like wild turkey hunting for sure.
Well, it's time for our trivia quiz today on Farm Week, and this week it's about the amount of pizza eaten each day here in the United States. It's a lot to say the least. Our question: how many acres of pizza are eaten every day in the United States? Is the answer 50 acres, 75 acres, 87 acres, or 100 acres? We'll have the answer after today's Food Factor segment.
Well, are you tired of winter? I know I am. In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman says if you see these plants blooming, spring is not far away.
Early flowering plants herald the coming spring season after a dreary winter. Flowering shrubs and trees offer a big punch of color and are popular with gardeners and homeowners. Forsythia may be one of the most beautiful and well-known of flowering shrubs. The bright yellow flowers look great against a background of evergreens. Forsythias are hardy and long-lived deciduous shrubs. These plants are not fussy about where they are planted as long as the soil is well drained, and they seem to thrive on neglect. It's a common sight to see forsythia showering old neighborhoods with their golden blossoms in the spring after many years of abandonment. Flowering quince is another indicator that the beginning of spring is near. The flower buds swell and give a preview of the coming color. When fully open, the masses of cherry red flowers are almost gaudy in a barren late winter landscape. Flowering quince stems can be cut and brought inside, allowing the flowers to open. But you have to be careful, as flowering quince forms an interlacing network of thorny stems. One flowering native tree that certainly gets its fair share of attention is redbud. Redbud flowers early in the spring before most other trees start to leaf out. The buds are gorgeous in the spring, with colors ranging from light clear pink to purplish pink. The flowers are grouped in clusters held tightly against the stems and branches. Forsythia, flowering quince, and redbud trees announce the coming of spring. You should be seeing them soon where you live in Mississippi. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Now, Forsythia is named for the Scottish botanist William Forsyth. He was the first to bring the plant to the British Isles from China.
St. Patrick's Day is almost here, and that means the color green is everywhere. In this week's episode of The Food Factor, Natasha Haynes of the Mississippi State Extension Service says we should also go for the green when it comes to healthy food choices.
Are you starting to see green? Adding green to your life isn't just lucky, it's healthy. Here are some great green ideas for St. Patrick's Day or any day. Add some zing to your favorite soup recipe by tossing in some frozen peas, grated zucchini, or chopped spinach. Include kiwi, green grapes, or honeydew melons in your fruit salad to help satisfy those cravings for sweets. How about making a lucky turkey sandwich? Add some delicious slices of fresh avocado, and your luck is sure to turn around. You can also go green on St. Patrick's Day by enjoying your favorite low-fat veggie dip with broccoli, or simply make a snack of green apple slices with low-fat peanut butter. But my absolute favorite, a super green vegetable pizza with green peppers, spinach, artichoke hearts, thinly sliced zucchini, and scallions. Delicious and good for you. So don't leave your health to plain old luck. Add some green foods to your diet today. It's time to make healthy food a factor in your life.
Many green vegetables are excellent sources of vitamin K. Now, vitamin K is vital for blood coagulation and proper bone density. Well, it's time for the answer to today's trivia quiz on Farm Week. Again, we want to know about how much pizza is eaten every day in the United States. Well, the National Ag Day folks say the answer is 100 acres. That's 350 slices a second. It's the same area as 62.5 football fields, including the end zones.
We're going to pause for a break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll have the calendar and one more feature story for you. We'll travel to the Midwest to visit one of the top 5 cattle seed stock operations in the United States, and it's all family owned.
From our family to yours, Mississippi's farmers believe the best produce and livestock are grown right here at home. With ms.foodsearcher.com, you're only a click away. Using your smartphone, you'll be connected to hundreds of families and small businesses dedicated to providing you with fresh, local foods. Produce, meats, fish, dairy, agritourism, community markets, and more are right at your fingertips, no matter where you are. ms.foodsearcher.com.
Before we get back to our last story, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. An MSU Forestry short course on handling extreme weather events in family forests takes place Thursday, March 26th. The location is the Tate County Extension Service office at number 1 French's Alley in Senatobia. The hours are 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. The cost is $25 and that includes lunch. The short course will cover ways for timberland owners to handle events such as timber damage due to ice storms or wind. IRS timber loss casualty provisions and timber insurance will be covered as well. A hardwood management field tour is Tuesday, April 7th. Now the tour will start from the Panola County Extension Service office on Eureka Street in Batesville. The cost is $10 and it's limited to 15 people, so you need to register by March 31st. The hours are 8:30 a.m. to noon. You'll tour privately owned hardwood forest sites to learn about management techniques. And go to our Farm Week calendar at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week snapshot.
America's farmers and ranchers have enjoyed record or near record prices for their cattle in the past few years. It's a situation caused largely by a drought-reduced herd and growing demand. Rebuilding the herd will take time, money, and favorable genetics. Nichols Farms of Iowa is the 5th largest seed stock operation in the nation. It's an old family operation, but it continues to embrace innovative technologies to produce better beef more efficiently. Market to Market's Laurel Bauer-Bergmeyer explains.
I can't remember a time when we weren't in the cattle business. My mom and dad were married and were tenant farmers in Nebraska, and they made a down payment on a farm in Adair County, Iowa when I was moved to Adair County when I was about a year and a half old, and I always remember Dad was a cattle feeder.
20 years ago, Market to Market introduced viewers to Nichols Farms in west central Iowa. A lot has changed over the past 2 decades, but one thing hasn't. Dave Nichols of Bridgewater, Iowa still has the wisdom of a cattle feeder and the spirit of an entrepreneur.
I think if you were to characterize Dave Nichols and Nichols Farms, as my dad once told me, he says, Dave, no more people see if you're a mile ahead of the parade than if you're a mile behind it. And I said, Dad, that's true, but I'm a mile ahead. I get to see the drum majorettes and the band and the flag. If you're a mile behind, you get to see a bunch of old guys picking up horse manure from the local saddle club.
Nichols Farms is known internationally for its innovative techniques in using genetic and production data from cattle to produce beef more efficiently.
It's a seed stock operation that our core business is a seed stock, and so we raise and sell lots of bulls, and we're currently the 5th largest seed stock operation in the country that's grown from very modest beginnings. And my dad's motto, I remember my dad has grown wiser every year as I've gotten older, and his motto was raise all you can, feed all you raise.
What was once a 240-acre farm has now grown into a 5,300-acre family seed stock operation. Nichols attributes his success to rigorous production standards, a willingness to embrace innovations, and aggressive marketing.
We're really unique in the large seed stock operations because all of our capital has been earned from within. We don't own Ford dealerships or anything like that. We've had to generate all our capital from within.
All Nichols bulls have complete performance records, expected progeny differences, or EPDs, ultrasound data, and DNA profiles.
When I scan, what that does is pull that individual bull up in our database. He's already pre-entered in there from weaning time by the EID, but it gives us his visual number, his whole pedigree, his birth date, all the different data that we keep. We keep about 85 different fields of individual data on each individual animal.
Today, nearly 85% of all U.S. Simmental genetics are traced to Nichols bulls. And all bulls in the top 1% of the All-Purpose Index, or API, contain Nichols genetics. Dave credits that track record to a commitment to keep the commercial producer and cattle feeder as a top priority.
We're known as our bulls are raised under the same environments that their cattle are. We don't show cattle, we don't fit cattle, we don't clip heads, we don't trim feet. We expect our cattle to work just as hard as we and our employees do. And so our cattle are known as these cattle. They're also known as cattle that have a lot of performance and grow.
In 2013, Nichols Farms sold over 400 bulls and is on track to do the same this year, including farmer Nick Price of Earlham, Iowa.
What brings me to Nichols now, I believe, is I was looking for consistency in genetics and like a solid cow herd that provides those genetics along with the sires that they put on the cows.
Nichols Farms procedures include artificial insemination of approximately 80% of purebred cows and heifers one time with seed stock from high-accuracy sires. The remaining wet 2-year-olds are bred naturally. To shorten generation interval and make maximum progress, Nichols Farms cleans up with a large number of yearling sires, except for the 2-year-olds, which are bred with a combination of proven and yearling bulls. Nichols sires are determined by an in-house index emphasizing carcass merit per day of age. As for females, all open heifers and cows are culled after a 63-day breeding season. Dry cows never go to pasture, and all females that lose a calf for any reason are culled from the herd. Other culling criteria include soundness of feet, legs, and udders, as well as disposition and performance. Nichols Farms computerized its system as soon as the technology became available. Today, its database contains more than 70 fields of data on each animal. To meet its production protocols, Nichols Farms embraces virtually every technology available, including ultrasound and genomics, and the operation has participated in over 20 research projects with land-grant universities.
He's a leader in adapting new things, and the techniques and the technology that I see them do are really creative and on the cutting edge and the forefront. And I think we're lucky to have such an innovator in Iowa representing the beef industry and see how he impacts the industry throughout the nation.
With a cattle feeder's perspective and a commitment to better beef that benefits not just Nichols Farms but the whole industry, Dave has had a deep-seated conviction to scientifically identify superior carcass genetics.
And I think what Nichols Farms offers to the consumer is a higher quality beef, a leaner product, but still with the marbling that we want for taste. And they also offer consistency, so that when I go to the grocery store or I go to the restaurant and I order a steak, I get a great tasting steak every time I order it. So you add that consistency, and I think that's what Nichols Farm is all about.
Nichols Farms genetics extend well beyond the United States. They've exported live cattle, embryos, and semen to 30 countries. And after 50 years in the cattle business, Dave has no intention of slowing down.
The reason we expand is part of my DNA, and I can't help it. Part of the reason, though, the main reason is if you really want to make improvement when you're improving cattle or hogs or anything, it requires numbers. And if in our case here, just in our Iowa division here, we have 600 bulls born each year, and we're going to pick out the 10 of them that's best. If we had 100 cows, we wouldn't have that many to pick out of. And so if you want your son to be a Rhodes Scholar that makes it into the NFL, you probably better find out a way to have 1,000 kids.
And you can watch this story on Nichols Farms on our Farmweek website. That's farmweek.msucares.com. You'll also see Farmweek stories on YouTube and Facebook, and we'll have a link to the Market to Market website where you can see the story as well as read the script. That's farmweek.msucares.com. And Leighton, he does bring up the fact, when in genetics, a lot of just getting the right genes to link up at the right time. So, I mean, he's right in that. But I was thinking about, they are a large operation, but they're a family operation. In fact, in the United States, still 97% of the farms are family owned. Now, it may be a corporation, but it's still a family operation. So they've just seen the vision, and he's kept getting bigger. And the reason they can get bigger is because they don't cut corners. They don't cut corners, and they deliver. Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, we'll have highlights of the 2015 Dixie National Sale of Junior Champions.
More than $380,000 in winning bids were made. More than $50,000 in scholarships were awarded.
In the food factor, be on the lookout for pantry pests.
You don't use often.
And in southern gardening, the saucer magnolia, it blooms before its leaves emerge.
And if you'd like further information on a Farm Week story, or you want to suggest a story to us, you can write us or call us. Get in touch with us. That's Farm Week Box 9625, Mississippi State, Mississippi 39762. That's Box 9625, Mississippi State, Mississippi 39762. Our telephone number is 662-325-2262. You can also get in touch with us through your County Extension Service office of Mississippi State University. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.